Hey everybody, it's Mike Sullivan with Born to Shine. Today we have a great guest. Her name is Dr. Alesia Smith, and she is Chief of Schools at Cincinnati Public Schools in Cincinnati, Ohio. And I don't know why, I feel like that was kind of a tongue twister. I'm glad I got through it. So, Dr. Smith, thank you for being with us and carving out some time for us today.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. And we were talking before the podcast, and I love your backdrop, the Golden Gate in San Fran.
Yeah,
That's cool.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
what was your journey like to become chief of schools at a really big school district in Ohio? What was that journey like? Because that's a really big
Well,
responsibility.
yeah, it is. Initially, I was a teacher in Cincinnati Public Schools.
Hmm.
So I went to college. I started out in Alabama, then came closer to home, which was at Central State in River Forest. And so I became a teacher in the district. So I was a part of this big district. And then I was a part of, as being a part of the district, I went a teacher, then I became an assistant principal, then a principal coach. And with all of that, I was a part of UVA, and I became a credentialed turnaround specialist. So then I traveled all over the world because my team and I turned around a school that was very low performing and had been traditionally low performing.
Mm,
And they came off of the state's list and Obama's list as one of the worst schools in the nation in a matter of 2 years.
mm.
And so then I was recruited down south and I went to Pine Bluff and then Little Rock, Arkansas for a total of about 8 years. And then this position became open, decided to come back closer to home, had some losses in my family, got some grandkids. And so it was like, yeah, it's time to be a little closer to home, which is a district that I previously matriculated through and had been a part of for 20 plus years before I left to venture off into a different, not area, still in education, but a different part of the country.
How cool is that? Now, I've heard a lot of different journeys, and they usually are the start as a teacher, then they go to an assistant principal, then an assistant soup, then a soup, something like that, right? You
Yes,
had something that was kind of cool, Dr. Smith. You said it was teacher, I think an assistant principal, then a principal coach.
yes.
What's that? This is a first. That sounds cool. What is that?
So a principal coach, in our district, you were selected to be a principal coach when you had a track record of moving your own personal school. So
Mm,
credibility was a part of that process.
mm.
And then you were under the deputy superintendent and you had other schools, and that meant you had other principals that you actually coached to do the same thing that you did. Not
Wow.
all, not necessarily replicating every part, but looking at the parts that they had in place that were working and the parts that you may have infused in your school that worked that you could share with them. So it's an amazing process. It was great. The schools that I coached, we were able, all three of them had double digit growth in 1 year in student achievement.
Wow.
And so the bottom line, as I tell people all the time, is that yes, the instructional pieces matter, and yes, research matters, but more than anything, it is having a group of people that actually love on kids and actually love them past where they are, love them past the pain of their trauma, the experiences that they're having, giving them tools in order to be successful at school. That's really what turned the school around. Yes, we use data. Yes, we made sure the kids got the best quality instruction as possible, but it was those human connections to people that believed in them and would speak to them in that manner every day that, hey, I know you're having a rough day, but you can't sit in the office all day. We'll give you some time to reprieve, but you got to learn how to read. You got to do mathematics. We'll give you some tools to handle some of that anxiety and your pain, but this is part of life, and we're going to help you navigate it so that you meet with success.
I love that so much, Alicia. The human connection, I think, what is what you said, right? And just
Yeah.
loving them past their pain, loving them
Hmm.
through all the stuff they're going through, which guess
Hmm.
what? We're human. We all go through stuff,
Yes.
right? And so we
Yes.
all need to
Yes.
support each other, love on
Yes.
each other, encourage each other. And that's so cool that you said that because you're right. You can have the best curriculum, but if it's lacking that love and lacking that empathy, and lacking that human connection. Like, hey, what are you going through? Just talk to me.
Yeah, yeah,
What's happening?
yeah.
Where they really know she cares. And
That's
then all of a
bottom
sudden they
line.
start
Yep.
caring. We
Yes.
care, they care. And
Yep.
and so
Yes.
that's I love that. And then when you were a kid, this kind of goes into question too. When you were a kiddo, talking about students that are struggling with anxiety or depression or PTSD, whatever they're going through, when you were a kiddo, did you have any challenges? Like for me, I was bullied so badly that it exacerbated that underlying predisposition I had for anxiety and depression, and woof, I was a hot
Yeah.
mess. So,
Yeah. Honestly, if I think back on my childhood, but as I'm going to share some of those things, but I think that I don't care what child it is, we all have some things in elementary, middle, and high school that tap into some of our weaknesses, that tap into some of our trauma. And I think it's how we teach kids to navigate it. And that again goes back to that human connection of connecting with kids that are struggling with being bullied or that have
mhm,
anxiety. And I think when we don't do that and we don't take the time to acknowledge that and help kids navigate it, it gets worse every year, right? And then
absolutely.
we end up with kids that are truly struggling that we could have helped 2 years ago, 3 years ago, if we had given them the tools. But also, I think the other piece that we miss is not just giving that child the tools, but giving the other kids tools of how to treat people and
Hmm.
how to take care of people the way they want to be taken
Hmm.
care of.
Hmm.
And I can remember as a teacher saying to my students, if we're talking about people in here, each one of us has something wrong with us.
Hmm.
So should we go through the entire class and talk about what all of us have wrong with us or all of the problems that each one of us have because we all have them? Or should we stop it, apologize, and just begin to accept people for who they are as long as they're not being mean and hateful to you? I think we want to do the other one, right? And
Right.
that would always get kids to thinking about, I have my own weaknesses. I don't want everybody to know what they are. So we might want to slow down and stop mistreating other people because we think we can,
Right.
because that's not acceptable in this class.
Right.
And I
Absolutely.
can remember being in elementary and middle because my school was a K-8 school. And I
Hmm.
can remember people being very not accepting all the time and making you feel like an outsider. So I
Mm.
dealt with a lot of that where people, sometimes I was okay to be a part of the in crowd, sometimes I wasn't. Some of that mean girl stuff that kind of tried to make you feel less than,
Mm.
and it was heartbreaking because all you're trying to do is go to school and meet new friends, right? All you're
Right.
trying to do. So you end up either one or two things happen. Either you fall all the way back or you put this wall up and you become this very defensive person
Hmm.
that has this hard exterior, but really is doing that to save and protect themselves. I think I did the hard exterior where I learned to protect myself until I saw if people were going to value me for who I was. I came from a very large family, not my immediate family, but my grandmother was one of seven. Her brother was had 10 kids, so there were always lots of us. So I could get a lot of that affirmation from my family, but
Hmm.
it didn't make school the greatest place for me.
Hmm.
And so I think that's why I spent as a teacher a lot of energy around building inclusive classrooms and inclusive
Mm.
schools,
I love that.
trying to make sure everyone felt like they were a part of the process. And a part of when I was as a principal getting into that tenure of 7 or 8, 9 years, we started getting the kids that were trying to figure out their identity and who they wanted to be. And I
Hmm.
would always tell kids, we are not going to make anybody feel like they're not a part of who we are because we believe or think differently.
Right.
That's not who we are. That's not who we want to be. And I think if you teach kids those skills, they learn to adapt and accept people for who they are. I think when we miss that is that when we have people mistreating people because of the color of their hair or their sexuality or if they're overweight or if they have a single parent home. I think not teaching kids about the importance of being inclusive of people because we all have shortcomings, it makes a difference when you say it to kids that way.
Absolutely. I love that. That inclusivity, including
Mhm.
everyone together, making
Mhm.
everyone feel like
Mhm.
they
Mhm.
belong, like they
Mhm.
matter, like they have value. Yeah, I love that. That is so cool. And then, what's working well at your school district to support your
Well,
kiddos with their mental health?
yeah. So we're doing a lot of stuff with social emotional learning. What I really love about our schools, all of our schools have a mind peace room, like a room where kids can go, a safe place.
Hmm.
Every room, it looks different at every school. Some have beautiful posters, some have bean bags, some have like little small um, bed sets where kids can just go lay down. There's always this like calming music playing. I believe that has been one of our best things that we could have done for our students, because they every school, even the high schools, have a place where kids can go and they can speak to an adult, or they can have just a moment where I just need to be here by myself with my thoughts. And
Yeah,
when I feel like sharing with you, I'll share. If I don't want to share, I don't have to share. I can write if I want to write. I can just lay and listen to music. I can do a stress ball. I can do what it takes for me to recenter myself so that I can get back on track for my education.
I love
That's
it.
one of the biggest things that we have. And we every school has a therapist, a mental health therapist that's on site. Um, and so I think that was a major piece too, because now we have someone on site that's equipped to handle all of those things.
That's awesome. I love it. And the person in that room that's is that the psychologist or the counselor in that special room?
It's the mental health therapist.
Okay, awesome. That's so
Yep,
cool.
yep,
And
yep,
if there's
yep.
anything that's on your heart, Dr. Smith, that you just want to share, and if you're like, why didn't that Michael dude ask me this? Like now's the time. Is there anything that you'd want to, any parting wisdom or advice?
Yes. The one thing I want to share is that we gotta love the work. It has to come from a place of your heart. And if you get to a place that you don't love it anymore, try to figure out when you fell out of love with it and why you don't love it anymore.
Mm,
Because what our kids need is more of people that are there, full of passion, full of patience, full of understanding. And don't get me wrong, the teachers are hardworking. They deserve a break too. But if you love it, it becomes what you do and who you are. And when you fall out of love with it, it becomes a job. And this is not something that you can just do as a job and make impact or change the lives of kids. It has to be something that's deep within you that you just like, I got to get up and do this because it brings me joy. It brings me laughter. It's nothing like seeing kids get it. It's nothing like working with a group of people that have the same drive. We're all rowing the boat in the same way because we know it's going to change kids' lives forever.
yeah, I love that. And there's so many teachers now that are feeling, um,
Yeah, they're,
struggling.
they're yeah they're struggling, and I get it. I'm not judging anybody, but the place that you can go back to and say what happened here, and it could be the organization, it could be maybe a leader that you didn't agree with. It could be parents, but whatever it is, the kids that are coming, they just need some restructure, and just need love. They need that unconditional. Let me look at you beyond where you come from, who raised you, what you look like. I see the potential to who you can be, so let me tap into that.
I love it. Dr. Alesia Smith, thank you so much for sharing your experience, which is a lot, and your wisdom, which is also a lot, and your heart, which is a lot. Thank you so much for sharing your time with us today.
No problem. Thank you so much, Michael. I appreciate it. Thank you for asking.
Absolutely.